Okay, thank you.
It's 5:30, and I'll call us into session. We do have a quorum, and so first item is, Mr. Nixon, I didn't get this organized. Will you do the pledge?
Absolutely.
Okay, here in a minute, we'll do the pledge of allegiance, and then Ken May will do the invocation.
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you, Mr. Nix. Just as a reminder, you have a granddaughter that was going to say the pledge one night, and it had a situation came up, so be sure to invite her back to do that sometime when she's
I
ready.
will, and I didn't pass out tonight like she did.
Well, good for you and her too. We'll have an invocation now by Pastor Ken May, Seymour First Baptist Church.
Thank you, Mayor. It's an honor to be here and begin this new year with you. Let's pray. Father God, we bow before you, thanking you that we are so blessed to live in this nation, to be given the gift of freedom, to be given the gift of assembling here, and to be able to make decisions that affect our own lives. And so, Father, we come before you today with praise and adoration for who you are, Creator, Sustainer, Savior, and Lover of every one of us. Thank you for the sacrifice you made on the cross so that we could be in your family forever. Today, Lord, I ask you to give the mayor, this city council, our attorney, our city manager, all of the other officials that are here today representing first responders and different areas of the city. Would you bless them? Would you watch over them? And would you give them wisdom to make the right decisions and to guide and to lead us? And would you give them great patience and mercy as they deal with people of many different opinions and backgrounds? We pray this in the name of Jesus. Amen.
Ken, appreciate that. first item on the agenda for the regular session is general discussion by citizens. I don't have any list of anybody tonight. Is there, did I miss somebody? Does anybody want to come up and speak? Okay, hearing none, we'll go on to the next item. And what we're gonna do, we have several changes tonight, so what we're gonna do is, if you'll go back on your agenda, back to page 3, and item number 6 is Planning and Development Services Committee. Mr. Huckabee has agreed to do his first because part of what we do here may affect the other items for early in the agenda, so. Mr. Huckabee.
All right, on December 17th, the Planning and Development Services Committee held a discussion concerning an ordinance that requires 3/4 vote of City Council to overturn a denial of a proposed amendment, a supplement, or change to the zoning regulations of the City of Stephenville. After some discussion, staff was instructed to bring to full council proposed ordinance that would remove the 3/4 and more streamline that to a majority, which is the way our policy is written for approvals as well. The proposed ordinance is attached. We've had a lot of changes. We changed the size of our P and Z, different things. So I know there's some discussion on this, so I'll just open it up to discussion for y'all. But there is a proposed ordinance here that would make it a majority of the quorum. The 3/4 requirement would still be in force if 20% of the notified neighbors petitioned. It would still have to be 3/4, so there still is the protection for the neighbors for something in there. So, Mr. King, am I forgetting anything? Jason helped do all this, so, I guess, what's the number on that? No. Number one. I'll make a motion that we approve the changes of ordinance number 2020-0-1.
You have a motion, do I hear a second?
Second.
Gerald makes a second.
And open that up for
Other
discussion.
discussion?
So the 3/4 would only be in effect if 20% of the neighbors objected.
Yes, that, in the radius part. Signed a petition.
If 20% sign a petition.
It very in line with what we did with Board of Adjustments, on some of those things. With carports and any other objections, there has to be
Okay.
20% show up or it's automatically approved through the administration.
Other questions? Yes, sir.
Is that for overturning a P and Z recommendation, a positive or a negative, or is it just for one or the other?
As it stands right now, it takes a majority for a positive recommendation. It takes a 3/4 majority, no matter who's here, not of the group, but of all 8, to overturn a denial or with changes, denial with changes. So this is just bringing it both into being majorities.
So this would apply to a positive or a negative. It would take a simple majority to overturn that, but a supermajority if you get the protest from the people within the 200-foot radius.
Correct.
I apologize, I missed the meeting where y'all
That's all
discussed
right.
that, so.
That's exactly right. It's making it this, it takes a simple majority to approve a positive recommendation from them, and this would make it the same for a denial or with changes.
Okay, to approve a recommendation takes a simple majority, but to deny it now takes a simple majority also.
No, super.
No, it takes a super majority, 3/4 of the entire council, so even if you had 2 people, I mean, it would take everybody there. If you had absences,
As it stands right now,
as it stands right now.
does this change that?
Yes, to both being simple majorities, unless 20% of the notified visitors sign a petition, and then it takes a supermajority.
So I
Okay.
have a question
To
about
overturn
that.
either one.
No.
See, that's
Just-
where I'm
just-
at.
Just the denial,
Just the denial.
and that's
Okay.
a state, that's state
And why
mandated.
change it?
Huh?
Why are we changing it? It's been this way a long time.
I think the thought process was that we shrunk the size of P and Z, and we're trying to streamline and make everything more in line with the opportunity. I mean, there's gonna be a lot more stuff coming towards us, a lot more complicated stuff, and I think it's just to streamline that, is the thought process.
Well, I have a question about that. Let's just look at the case we had last month that Jimmy talked about. Jimmy was against that zoning being changed. And so if they had denied that, they didn't deny it, but they went.
They did deny it. It would have
Yeah, they
taken-
did deny it.
Right.
So it would take a supermajority. So why in the world would the neighbors protest it? Because Jimmy didn't want it anyway. So that doesn't really make sense, that 20% of those neighbors wouldn't go sign a petition saying, we don't like that they denied it, we want it the other way. That doesn't make sense to me.
No, the deny it would be like Jimmy getting.
Am I
20
misunderstanding that if it takes a supermajority to overturn what P and Z did? But now you're saying just a simple majority can overturn it. And I don't think the neighbors would say, well, we don't like, it doesn't make sense to me.
Alex?
If I may, the 20% protest is section 211.006 of the local government code. That's tracked specifically from state law. And so that's what this will do is, on normal cases, it will streamline everything. But in any decision that the P and Z, or any recommendation that the P and Z makes, if 20% want to protest that decision, whether it's positive or negative, then they can present a petition with 20% of the folks that were contacted. And then it would force a 3/4 vote on either a positive or a negative recommendation. Is that correct, Mr. Lloyd?
So just a hypothetical.
Yes.
So we've got a property that's gone through P and Z, and there are 8 property owners in that 200-foot radius, but 90% of the area is a single property owner. A single property owner would, in his mind or her mind, have the greatest negative impact, if that's what they were thinking. How would that play out?
It would still take 2 folks to sign a petition.
But
if
if only
there
one
are
other
8 owners.
person on land.
It didn't have anything to do with the amount of land, it's people. So in your case, it would take 6 to sign a petition.
He's
No,
saying the
two,
property's
no,
owned.
20%.
by-
2 or 3, yeah, I'm sorry, I was thinking, getting 3/4 mixed up.
Even if they were out of state owners that couldn't be contacted? Yeah, okay.
But that's not changed, that's the same as of, I mean, that's
the way it-
current, that's the
that
way
is
it is
current.
now.
That's
That's
correct.
not really a change. The only change that Truly's making is, in the ordinance, is that it is a majority both to approve the approve or their denial coming from P and Z.
Override their
To overturn their denial.
It just takes a majority. simple
Yeah,
majority, because
per
50 plus
se, there
one.
was something that came up that, was in an executive session reason of some reason, you could fix that. As of now, you would take, there's a possibility if you had 3 people absent, you couldn't overturn that, you delay the project forever. I understand, it's my reasoning for.
Any other questions? Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. We have a motion and a second to approve or adopt the ordinance number
01.
01. Oh, there you go, first time, okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Same sign opposed.
No.
Motion passes. Thank you, Mr. Huckabee, for your report. Now, let's go back to the item, first page again. Ms. Karen, would you get up and introduce the first item for us?
So the first case that we're going to be hearing is RP 2019-001. The applicant, City Center Townhome, Malcolm Canute, is requesting a replat of L1 and 3, Block 56 of the City Edition as recorded in document number 2019-06698 of the official record to the City of Stephenville. This is the last part of City Center Townhomes. It's just a replat for his whole development.
Okay. First item will be, we'll enter into a public, well, I'll tell you, why don't we let Malcolm come up and you have a request to come up and speak on, so why don't you come up and speak first about the, about that, and discuss it for us. Explain.
I just filled that out in case anybody,
Okay, I got you.
in case I needed to speak.
All right, we'll enter into public, well, are you here just in case, huh?
Exactly.
There you go, I like those. First thing we'll do is enter a public hearing. Does anyone here want to speak in opposition to the request? Hearing none, does anybody want to speak in support of the request? Hearing none, we'll close our public hearing and enter into, item 2, which is consider approval of the replat of lots 1 and 3, block 56 of Stephenville. Do I hear a motion?
So moved, sir.
Second.
Second.
Mark makes the motion and Carla seconded it. She's the first one I heard. Okay, any further discussion? Okay.
Karen, is this this is the completed plat for that planned development, is that correct?
That is correct.
And staff has looked at this and it meets all the requirements for our planned development ordinance.
Yes, sir. Does have a common area. He's gonna do an HOA with this development, and so the common area will be taken care of with the HOA.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Other discussion? Let's proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Same sign opposed. Motion passes. So I guess you'll need to come speak, just in case.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
One thing, I just wanna thank the whole, city staff for everything they did to help work through the few glitches that came up, especially Karen and Shira and Alan and, Randy, who was, without that, we would not be starting construction here. So I just wanna thank them all.
Well, everybody up here appreciate you spending your money in developing the city of Stephenville.
And
Thank
it
you very
looks
much for
really
doing that.
nice over there,
Thank you very
Malcolm.
much.
It is. It's a good
Thank you,
project.
sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Matt.
Okay, we are going to pull items 3, 4, 5, and 6 from the agenda tonight. So the next item will be item 7. Karen, would you make her presentation?
Case number RZ 2019-001, applicant William Dunson is requesting a rezone of property located at 701 Riverside Drive, being Lot 1 and 3, Part of 1, Block 16 of the Clifton Heights Edition to the City of Stephenville, Erath County, Texas, from B1 Neighborhood Business to R2 1 and 2 Family. Applicant is requesting the rezone to demolish the existing structure and build a home. The proposed rezone is not consistent with the comprehensive plan that the city has in place. The Planning and Zoning Commission met on December 18, 2019, and made a motion to recommend approval of the rezone request by a unanimous vote.
Any questions for Karen? Hearing none, we'll go into public hearing. Is there anybody that wants to speak in favor of the request? Hearing none, does anybody want to speak in opposition to the request? We'll close the public hearing and enter into item number 8, which is to consider approval of ordinance number 2020-02, right?
So moved.
Okay, I have Brandon make the
Second.
motion. Carla seconds it. Write these down. Any further discussion?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Karen, this parcel is not in, if I'm looking at the zoning map right, it's not zoned as the contiguous properties on either side already.
That's correct. This neighborhood has all kinds of zoning going on.
Okay, but the future zoning has R1 for virtually that whole area. But he's asking for R2 rather than R1, am I correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Do you know if he plans to build a
He's
single-family
here.
residence instead of?
He's here.
He's here if y'all would like to ask him.
Okay, we'll leave it or testify here in a minute.
Okay. I'm not sure
Okay.
what he's planning on. I think originally he talked about adding on to it, but he wants to tear it down and build a new one, so.
Okay. All right, well, here, enter a public hearing. Bill, why don't you come up and speak, I'm assuming you're gonna speak in favor of your request.
Yeah, well, I
Come on up
actually
here.
done it until my grandson knocked it off my phone. It's just a little simple two-bedroom, two-bedroom, two-bath. It's not gonna be anything elaborate, but it's gonna greatly improve a dilapidated property, which is where I grew up, as some of y'all know.
Amen.
And, that's the main thing. We just want to keep it in the family and, spruce up the neighborhood a little bit. It's, I wish the picture was still on there. I'd show it around and see what we're looking at.
Okay.
And part of the reason that things rezoned like that was, years ago, Jim Houston wanted to put a muffler shop in next door. And my dad came up and worked with him, spoke for him, you know, because Houstons were family friends, which is kind of the way things went back then. And got that done. So the patchy zoning is really, Herschel Melton had a garage behind his house across the street, and that's where he made his living when the Meltons all grew up there. So that's the reason, some of this, Brandon McKinney has a shop back there now, where he does things. That's part of the reason for the spotty zoning. It's not something that just kind of evolved that way. And then the apartments came in next door, but, in reality, that's been a residence for over 100 years now.
Yeah.
And it
That's
was,
sad, and y'all know the story
it was
about the-
commercial before that.
Yeah, and there was a Mr. Bird that owned it and sold it to my parents back in the 40s. And some question of whether it was 46, 48 is really not important, but as I said, it's been a residence for many years now, and just trying to make it a better residence.
Well, it was Dunson's store for as long as I can remember.
A lot of years, there's a lot of kids that got free candy out of there.
Thank you.
might have.
Thank you, Bill.
Thanks, Bill.
Okay, thank y'all.
Okay, does anybody want to come speak in favor? Anyone speak opposed? Hearing none, we'll consider ordinance number 2020-02.
You've got a
And
motion.
we have a
and
motion,
second.
that's right, we have a motion, Brandon made a motion, Carl seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Same sign opposed, motion passes. Thanks, Bill.
Thank y'all.
We're also gonna remove items 9 through 12, so we'll go to item 13 now. Karen, will you make a presentation?
Case number SV 2019-009, applicant Vaquero Stephenville Partners LP is requesting a subdivision waiver from section 155.6.04.M1, curb and gutter requirements to be constructed at 2275 West Lingleville Road, being Lot 1 and 2, Block 7 of the Oak Tree addition to the city of Stephenville, Erath County. Staff does not support the waiver as curb and gutter is a requirement per city ordinance. The Planning and Zoning Commission met on December 18, 2019, and made a motion to recommend approval of the waiver request. Motion passed with 4 voting against.
So the vote was
5-4.
5-4. All right, does anybody have any questions for Karen? Hearing none, we'll enter public hearings. Anybody want to speak in favor of the request? Yes, sir. State your name, you would, and where you live.
Ryan Dykstra, 2900 Wingate Street, Fort Worth, Texas. So we've been working on this for a while with y'all, and happy to answer any questions and have a discussion on it with you. Just want to make myself available.
Anybody have a question for the applicant?
Okay. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Anybody want to speak in opposition? Hearing none, we'll close the public hearing and move on to item number 14. Consider approval of waiver of the subdivision ordinance for the city of Stephenville. Hear a motion?
I make the motion that we approve the, request.
Carl makes the motion, and Ricky seconds it. Any further discussion?
Mayor, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
This is for Mr. Barnes, I believe. If we deny the request for the waiver, or approve, maybe I should say approve the request with the waiver, and add to that we ask them to escrow the funding for that pending TxDOT widening that road, which I feel like at some point they'll do, because there will be more development out there. Could we ask them, rather than build that now and have it in limbo because it doesn't come to the edge of the pavement, ask them to escrow the funding for that until TxDOT extends or widens that road?
The actual procedure for doing that is, excuse me, is that they would not receive the variance or the waiver. And I would determine that it is in the best interest of the project and the city that this be escrowed. They would be required to escrow 110% of the estimated cost for the curb and gutter at a bank that is agreed upon by the city of Stephenville. That amount can be held for up to 10 years. At the 10th anniversary of the escrow, if the improvements have not been made, then it is returned to the developer. That's the way the subdivision ordinance is written.
So the council would need to move to deny the waiver then, to allow you the latitude to ask them to escrow the funding.
Yes, sir, I would recommend that they ask for the determination of the city manager
Okay.
to do the escrow.
And staff does not support the waiver because of the ordinances as they exist.
That's correct. What I anticipate, there's a housing development or a further development that's projected in that area. We would do the same until TxDOT widened the roadway. At this point, we don't know if TxDOT or when TxDOT will widen the roadway. But if for whatever reason they do widen it, it may fall to us to pay for it in that way. If we have those escrows, then that would offset that cost.
Okay?
Other questions?
No.
Anybody else have a question?
Yeah, so, I do.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so what's the probability of TxDOT in their, if they choose to widen that road, including curb and gutter as a part of that process?
I think it's probably quite high, because if I'm not mistaken, doesn't the east end have some curb and gutter in the residential areas? So I would presume that they would continue it out. It's TxDOT, who knows?
Well, there's curb and gutters all the way to north.
All the way to the loop, yeah.
Yeah. And so I would presume that they would have the same aesthetic going out.
Other questions?
I'm usually for I actually think sidewalks make sense here with the major multifamily
But we're not
there.
talking about the sidewalks yet,
Oh,
just curb and
Oh,
gutter.
I'm sorry.
But they kind of fit together.
They all
Hey,
fits
remember
together.
that.
I mean,
Keep that in mind.
Yeah.
I think
But
it all
they
fits,
voted
I
to
think
make
it all
them do the
fits together, to
sidewalks.
be honest with you, because it is right next to
The
what's gonna be more
Apartments.
development and the apartments.
That's
This
exactly-
isn't just out in the middle on a State Farm Road. This is, I mean, I think in 5 years, maybe 10 years, this is a completely developed stretch of road from the entrance of golf course left and right all the way down, so.
I think so,
um,
yes.
I strongly should, no, that's how I feel. I think they should be there, so.
Other questions or comments? We have a motion and a second to approve the waiver, which is the curbs and gutter, right? He's back on track. Okay. Proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye. Same sign opposed.
No.
Can I have a roll call vote? Place one,
No.
Aye.
place two,
Aye.
place three.
Aye.
Place four.
Aye.
Place five.
Aye.
Place six.
No.
Place seven.
No.
Place eight.
No.
Then I'll vote and break the tie with a yes. And so I'll have votes 5-4. Ordinance or the request passes. Now we'll go on to the next item, which is, we'll enter a public hearing then on case number SV 219, 2019-010. Karen, would you make a report, please?
Case number SV 2019-010, applicant Vaquero Stephenville Partners LP is requesting a subdivision waiver from section 155.6.11 sidewalk requirements to be constructed at 2275 West Lingleville Road, being Lot 1 and 2, Block 7 of the Oak Tree addition to the city of Stephenville, Erath County. Staff does not support this waiver as sidewalks are required per city ordinance. The Planning and Zoning Commission met on December 18, 2019, and made a motion to recommend denying the waiver request. Motion passed with 3 voting against the motion.
So it was 6-3 then?
Yes.
6-3. Okay, well, any questions for Karen? Now we'll enter the public hearing. Is there anybody here that wants to speak in favor of the request? Yes, sir. Say your name and.
Ryan Dykstra, 2900 Wingate Street, Fort Worth, Texas.
Okay.
So this one, I do agree that there is the multifamily next door, and I'd like to find a way to, maybe find some sort of compromise on something we can do in order to make this work for all of us. A thought I had, and give me y'all's feedback on this, is instead of, 'cause I don't know how pedestrian friendly this area is. Y'all probably know better than me,
No,
but
it's not.
it seems like it's just a lot of vehicular traffic, not as much pedestrian. in order to, accommodate that multifamily that's existing, if we extended, you look on the, do you all have the site plan? I've got copies with me, if anyone needs it.
We don't have a side plan.
Do you want, Councilman Nix?
Is it? Okay, I'm just, my thing wasn't scrolling all the way down.
So a thought I had would be, if we, so in front of the entrance to the store there, it's the sidewalk in front of the parking spaces. If we continue that sidewalk over to the multifamily, 'cause I doubt they'd want to come out to the street and walk around in the bar ditch there. I'd imagine they'd come through their parking lot, which is kind of right in line there with the front of our store. If we put in like a sidewalk all the way over to the edge of our property line, and we put a gate in the privacy fence so they could get through, do you think that's something that I think would maybe make more sense for us to do to be conducive with that multifamily?
Questions or comments?
Is the fence going to come up to where the sidewalk would be, or are you setting the sidewalk back in your proposal?
So right now we have an existing privacy fence that's on the side of the property there.
Oh, okay.
I'd say we'd continue the sidewalk from the front of the store over to that fence and put a gate in where they can open and close it.
I think, right now, I mean, the immediate concern is the multifamily, but there's still a lot of other development that's gonna happen. There's a lot, to the east side of that multifamily development, and then a lot to the west side that will develop, and of course, there's a large neighborhood that exists there, so.
My thought on the east side, it's got it's the floodway running through there, and there's a large, it's very densely shrubbed, and there's a large drop off where if it was ever to connect to the east side, you'd likely have to build a bridge with the sidewalk over. And there's an existing, I believe it's a nursing home that's right there. I'm sure they'd have to, get on board with all that. I don't know how feasible that would be. But I think there'd be challenges of continuing that to the east. And so I'd like to work with, connecting to the west, because I think that's the
If
best
TxDOT
option.
widens that, they'll make some sort of bridge crossing over that waterway, and they'll incorporate into that some kind of pedestrian walkway, so they don't have to walk in the right of way. I've seen them do that on numerous other places, and I suspect they'll do it there when they widen that, and sooner or later they will.
Okay.
And if there's no sidewalk for it to connect to, it doesn't make much sense. That's one reason that I think P and Z didn't see the reason to grant the waiver.
Sure. And maybe,
Also think
Go.
that if you look at this and look at the bigger picture of the entire area here, it's going to develop, and it's going to develop relatively quickly. In other words, within the next 5 years, just like you're planning the Dollar General there. There are others that are planning additional developments on past you and across the street and so forth. And to grant a waiver from the sidewalk thing, especially considering that we've got hundreds of people living there that are going to be shopping at your place probably, and everything, and walking up and down these, it's gonna be more pedestrian in the future. And to waive it or allow you to, oh, well, let's put the sidewalk so they can walk in our front door. That's not the purpose of this. The purpose is general ability to walk between property, across the front of the properties and whatnot, and to look more like an urban setting. And so I just can't see us changing what the P and Z has done. on this.
certainly, and I understand and want to be
I just
respectful of
cannot
that.
support a waiver.
Do you think that maybe there's a scenario here where, as Councilman Nix suggested on the previous one, where we escrow some money so that as the area develops, and in that time, y'all can put the sidewalk in when it matches up with the development coming in?
Personally, no, sir, I think you need to put it in now.
Well, there's a question, Alan or Karen, one of the two. This project would be eligible for our sidewalk program?
Yes.
Be 75, 30, 25%, is that right?
Wouldn't it be?
Normally, it's not offered to new development, it's already established. So when new development development comes in and those sidewalks are put in, it makes the other developments around that do not have sidewalks want to put sidewalks in. So we help them in order to make it a walkable city.
So you're saying it's not eligible, is that
I
correct?
thought that program was for resident.
It's 50/50 on one and 75/25
Oh,
for
okay.
commercial. So is that, you agree with that, Alan?
I agree with that.
Okay.
And the sidewalks, just for the record, sidewalks have to be placed in the public right of way. So what he's proposing would be on his property and then going across an adjacent property owner. So all sidewalks have to be on the public right of way.
Any other questions? Okay, any other questions? Not while you're into public hearing, thank you very much. Unless you have something else you'd like to say, Jess?
No.
Okay, we're gonna enter a public hearing then, so anybody wanna speak in favor of the request, other than the developer? What about opposed to the request? Hearing none, we'll close the public hearing and move into item 16, which is consider approval waiver from subdivision ordinance. Do I hear a motion?
I make a motion that we deny the waiver of the
Second.
sidewalk.
Second that.
It was denied by P and Z or approved?
It was denied.
Well, then we don't have to vote on it if we're not gonna have a motion, is that correct? It comes just
You gotta
denied.
vote. It's a request.
Yes.
It's a request, one where they have to
Yeah,
go
you have
for
to
it.
vote.
Okay. So we have a motion by Carla. Anybody want to second it?
Second.
Gerald has seconded it to deny the request. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Same sign opposed. The motion is denied then, so work with the city on doing some other option. Thanks, sir. Okay, get back in my agenda list here. Move around. All right, we're going to committee reports. Mr. McClinton.
Mr. Mayor, Finance Committee met on 17 December. We had several things on the agenda for that meeting, all of them action items. The first one was a discussion of the fee schedule. I want to give a little background. This came up because some council members identified some items that were being charged by the city but not reflected on the fee schedule. And so Monica and her team were requested to take a look at that and make some recommendations. That information is presented. She also included, we had passed we had approved the increases from Waste Connection on the solid waste pickup, and so she went ahead and incorporated that into the new fee schedule. If there's anything in particular that you would have a question about, I'd invite Monica to let you know.
Anybody have any questions? So we have a motion. Are you gonna make a motion based on that then?
Mr. Mayor, I'd make a motion that we adopt and approve ordinance number 2020-03, amending the fee schedule as it's been presented.
Second.
Mark makes the motion, Brandon seconds it. Any further discussion? Proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Same sign opposed, motion passes. Next item.
Mr. Mayor, we also had a proposal and a discussion about the P-card policy. We've been talking about this for quite some time. This came about from credit card abuse and theft that occurred by a former city employee. And what we have been working with, and I think everybody's had a chance to look at that draft policy. And so we made some minor changes to that policy. And we did not have at the Finance Committee meeting a justification for the cards to be issued, but Mr. Barnes has come up with that. That's included in the information we have here tonight. This did come forward from the Finance Committee with a positive recommendation. I'd invite Mr. Barnes to add anything to this discussion that he wants to on the P-card.
The only thing that I would add is that Mr. McClinton and I met and had a very lengthy discussion, excuse me, about this policy and the implications, as well as the P-card limits by position that you see presented tonight. It does show that my one-time limit and my monthly limit is $25,000. It also shows that the assistant city manager's two limits are $15,000. Those were on suggestion of Mr. McClinton, because I'm authorized to spend up to $25,000 prior to seeking approval of council. And the assistant city manager, while it does not have a formal spending limit, may in fact have to incur that kind of cost. Neither of us want to, neither of us anticipate doing that, but given the other limitations, if there is a significant water main break or something that we have to buy equipment or pipe or something in the middle of the night for, certainly either the assistant city manager or the city manager will be present to do so and will make that authorization. Previously, that was done by the director or the assistant director of that department. I'm willing to answer your questions.
Any other questions?
48 cards will be out, or that's just the limit that can be out?
That's the limit that can be out.
So what do you anticipate being?
Wasn't it 40 or
41, but
41?
4 of the 41 cards will be the on-off cards,
Yes,
the
sir.
deployment cards. So
correct.
they'll be suspended the majority of the time. They'll only be turned on and usable if someone is out for training and then they have to travel for training or something like that. So there would be 37 cards plus 4 deployment cards. And here's the breakdown of the cards. And Mr. Barnes indicated that the limits, both one-time and monthly limits that he's given here in this, are based on the historical record. For these positions that he's justified for having a card, what they've spent in times past, and these limits would fall within the historical record for those positions.
Any more questions, Carl?
I'm still a little uncomfortable with how many cards are out, but as long as it's justified, and I really appreciate, Monica, all the work you put into putting safeguards into the system, so, thank you.
I think you'll be pleased once we can roll out our new vendor with some of the things, because I'm working on it now, on actually even reducing the types of purchases that can be made.
Good.
So
Okay.
we can restrict it even further, so we're kind of working on that.
Well,
Thank
just
you.
some of the concerns, one thing I'd suggest is that once we get the new card implemented, that you bring some of those, I'd bring all 41 of them, and just say, to one of our work sessions and say, here's some examples of how we're using them. So I think some of the concern that some of the folks with how many cards is what can be purchased on them, what gets being purchased on them.
And I think once we go through and you see what we're restricting it to, the type of purchases, I think you'll be a little bit more comfortable with the implementation.
Absolutely.
Any other questions? Yeah, you want something to say, something?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, just like when we approved the resolution to go to regions, isn't it? This policy is just one more step in the control steps that we're taking. We'll be back with others, such as the ones that Monica discussed tonight.
Questions, comments? Hearing none, Mark, do I have a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve Resolution 2020R-01 as presented.
Second.
Mark makes a motion, Ricky, you second it? Okay. Further discussion? Should vote, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Same sign opposed, motion passes.
And are we gonna carry on even though we pulled some stuff off earlier? Assume we will. The item number 3 on our Finance Committee meeting was a discussion of expanding TERS 1. We have talked about this tax increment reinvestment zone for some time now. There's been a lot of discussion about what all surface area needed to be included in this. This, I believe, is the final step in TERS 1. You should have a picture of that expanded area that is on the north end and the south end of Harbin Drive that was not included before. And this is simply another step in the puzzle that we're trying to put together here. This did come forward from the Finance Committee with a positive recommendation, and I would invite Mr. Barnes to add anything he feels pertinent.
Yes, sir. At the February meeting, we will have a meeting of the TERS board to change their funding program, I think is what it's called, as well as expand the boundaries of the TERS, and then the council will also approve those at the February meeting.
Any questions?
I do have one question.
Okay.
The Charlton crossing area is included in this. If that 380 agreement does come to fruition, that would be outside of this TERS. This won't affect that agreement any, is that correct?
Oh, that's correct.
Other questions? Do I hear a motion?
I make a motion that we approve 2020R-2.
I'll second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. And Mark, you made the second?
I did.
Okay. Any discussion? Let's proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Same sign opposed. Motion passes.
Mr. Mayor, we'll get back to it. Find out what our fourth item was.
That was actually the fourth item.
Number 5.
CO.
The
Nope,
CO.
this, the CO, issuance of the CO.
That's fine.
CO.
Four is the TERS, 5 is the CO.
Right, so we also had a discussion about issuance of COs. This again has been an ongoing process. We've been talking about this for some time. There is a finite time, a calendar that is at the very end of the list for the Finance Committee report. And that was produced by Hilltop. You can see, if you turn to that, it's on page 32 of 32. What we're doing is we're taking the first step in that timeline process at this meeting tonight to initiate the issuance of the COs. And the printed, I assume this is what will be printed in the paper, this notice of intent?
That's correct.
So you also see the publication that'll be put in the paper of record on these COs. And again, this is something that we've been talking about for quite some time. In order for us to stay on track with those things that we've been discussing, this tonight is the first step. And I would again invite Mr. Barnes to add anything he feels is pertinent.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, the notice of intent has a not to exceed amount of $13 million, I believe it is. That is certainly not saying that you're going to sell certificates of obligation for $13 million. That is simply kind of like we do the property tax that sets the maximum amount. The council can decide not to, based on this timeline, the council can decide not to issue up until prior to the Monday, March 2nd. Once the pricing and the underwriter has made their issuance, whatever it's called, then that's kind of the demarcation line. That's the point of no return. We can do the agency rating, we can do the preliminary official statement, we can do everything else, but you have, on this timeline, you have until arguably the 27th, the last working day of February to say no.
Yes, ma'am.
So when will we actually vote on borrowing the money?
You will actually vote on borrowing Well, that's an interesting way to, that's an interesting question. The actual vote to say yes will be on March 3rd,
Okay.
but you can say no prior to March 2nd. That's the no-go line, the no backing out line.
March 2nd?
Yes,
So when will we, if we're voting for this tonight, we are voting to borrow that money?
no, ma'am, we can do that if the council so desires. We can either do it at the February meeting, we can call it
Okay,
an extra
okay.
meeting.
So,
It's
I guess
whatever.
one of my questions on the timeline is, if by March 2nd, if we've not said no,
You've said yes.
we've said yes.
That's correct.
Without another vote?
Not
Technically, we can't back out. There's some financial repercussions if we don't, is what your issue is.
That's what Hilltop has advised.
You wouldn't have to issue it, but there would be considerable penalties by not doing so.
That's correct.
Basically, all we're doing is doing a resolution authorizing the notice of intent, correct?
That is correct.
Just the notice of intent.
The advertising in the paper for 2 times, it has to be done within so many days of this meeting, and then exactly 7 days later. So it will be in Saturday's paper this week, and then the following Saturday's paper after that.
And our next action is when?
We can do it actually probably the 7th of, or
February?
what's the, I'm sorry.
It's
this
the
is
4th.
The 4th. I would recommend, if you want to do a vote, a yea or nay vote, at a regular meeting, I would recommend you do it the 4th. You may want to wait until we get our rating. I don't think it'll take 17 days. It's never taken 2 weeks to get a rating, as far as I know. It's taken about 10 days.
Well, I think there's gonna be some folks that wanna be able to say no
Correct.
prior to that date, so that's the information that would make my decision.
Could we do a special meeting during our committee meetings, or the same date as our committee meetings? I think it's the
Sure.
21st.
Sure.
That would be after
The 21st, you said?
Right, I think
February
that's right.
21st of February?
February 21st, which would be
So
after
that
we
would be
receive the
after
rating.
we receive.
And,
Yeah.
and Monica, you can reach out to Eric to make sure that date is in fact a solid date. The 21st is an okay date. We will confirm that and let you know, but that's what he's indicated in the past, is the prior to March 2nd is the no-go.
So I still have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
So after this comes out in the paper and people see that we're about to borrow 13 million, but 13 million is the max we'll borrow, what do we say to people when they say, but how much are you borrowing?
That's to be determined, and the reason it's to be determined is because the actual amount is approximately $12.5 million. That is for Project CS, for the public improvements of Project CS, and for the improvement of Harvin Drive. If, depending on the rating and other things, if we decide to sell at a premium, we would probably, and this is all probably, if it's to our advantage to sell at a premium, we would probably sell at $12.5 million, which would pay for all of our closing costs, some of our capitalized interest, and perhaps even reduce a little bit of our principal. If that's available to us, that would be at a little bit higher rate, 10, 15 basis points, maybe 20. If the market is not favorable to do that, then we would probably borrow up to the $13 million to cover the closing cost, because otherwise, it costs about $300,000 to $500,000 to close on bonds. And that's almost regardless of the amount.
Any other questions, Carla?
No?
Anybody else? Mark, you bring a motion?
I will, sir. I move that we approve resolution 2020R 03 as presented. That's a resolution directing newspaper publications on intent to sell.
A motion by Mark and a second by Brandy. Any other questions? proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Same sign opposed. Motion passes. Anything else, Committee Chair?
No, sir, that is the end of the Finance Committee meeting.
Thank you. I appreciate all the hard work you did. There's a lot of subjects there you had to deal with. I appreciate that. Monthly budget report, Ms. Harris.
Mayor and Council. First, I'd like to thank you guys for giving us the money to upgrade our Encode software. You probably can't tell, but this report came directly out of the financial software instead of having to manually key it in. I had to tweak it just a little bit, but it took a little while to get it set up. But hopefully in the future, it'll be push a button and then we have numbers instead of spending a lot of time manually keying. So we appreciate that. These are the financial statements ending November 30th, 2019, which are 2 months into our fiscal year. We're about where I would anticipate us to be. For our property taxes, we received $277,000 in the month of November, which is $112,000 or 16.45% decrease over the funds collected last year. However, the county collects an average of 8.4 of our annual taxes through November, and the 571 that's collected through November is 8.88% of what our budget is. So I still think we're on track. I just think we had some, looking historically, we had some earlier payers last year for whatever reason. I guess they wanted to just get it over with. For sales tax, we received $607 in sales tax in November, resulting in $60,000 or 5.49% over our target budget through November. We received $8,000 or 0.73% more than the funds received through November of last year. For our hot funds, we received $10,538 in revenue in hotel occupancy tax fund through November. Last year it was $10,541, so it's pretty comparable. The next filing date for the report ending 12/31/19 will be January 31st, so we'll start seeing more money come in this month. We spent $55,432 in hotel occupancy tax funds through November. The prior year was $26,210. And some of that has to do because we started paying for some of the Moolah Fest now instead of waiting. We didn't have that the previous year. The target budget for operating revenue is $4.6 million. We received $4.3 million through November, which is $369,000 under our budget. But that has to do with our property taxes because they don't become delinquent until January 31st. We did have some other taxes that are also due quarterly. The target budget for operating expenditures is $3.4 million. We expended $3.8 through November, which is $375,000 over our target budget. The first couple months of the year, we pay a lot. We have to pay our annual insurance, and we pay it in bulk. And then we have a lot of software maintenance agreements that are annual that we pay in October and November that causes it to be a little up. The operating revenue received last year was $3.8 million as compared to the current year's $4.3 million, which is a $496,000 increase due to our service charges and insurance proceeds we received this year. The operating expenditures last year were $3.3 million compared to the current year's $3.8 million, which is $491,000 increase, and that's due to wages and benefits. Obviously, we give employees wages, but it's going to compare higher to the previous year. Maintenance and some earlier annual payments this year than we did last year. The Upper Leon bulk payment we made a little bit earlier this year than we did last year. For our new programs, the performance management software has been purchased, a loader rake has been purchased for the street department loader, and the engineering for the South Lockhart has started. Is there any questions?
Questions for Monica?
Yes, sir, I have.
Yes, sir.
The hotel occupancy tax funds, there were some people who weren't current on that. Are those figures taken into account in this?
No, because that would have been money for last fiscal year.
Okay,
So they're late in reporting for the period ending September 30th. And so I know one of them, we've already got the funds in after we
Okay,
sent
okay.
thank you, Randy, for sending that letter. And after we sent that letter out, they came in and paid. We still have not heard from the other one yet. So, but they
Did they
have
get the
some.
same letter?
They got the same letter that the other one did, but I believe we gave them until, was it the 20th?
You got about another week, I think.
Yeah, and then we'll proceed with legal action,
okay,
need be.
Other questions?
thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate it. I've never said this before. She does a really good job. Just add that to our number list. We do not have a report today for Economic Development Corporation, is that correct? No report tonight, so item 9 will pull for the report. And consent agenda, we're gonna pull item 2. Otherwise, is there anybody else wanna pull something from the consent agenda? Yeah, that's 2. Do I have a motion?
I move that we approve consent list item 2.
Mark makes the motion, Gerald seconds it. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Same sign opposed, motion passes. Okay, we have, there was a request tonight about the contract on item number 2. So you wanna make a report now that we got the data?
So we provided the bid tab that we received for the landscape and medium mowing, and we went back with the contractor and asked them what it would take to prorate minus the fall plantings and materials, and then 7 of our cycles, which would reduce our contract down to $20,725.
Any questions?
How many people bid on this?
I believe we had 3 bidders.
3 bidders,
Yes, sir.
and this was the lowest bid?
Yes, sir.
Other questions?
Have we worked with this contractor before?
Yes, they currently do all of our mowing around the city, and they've been the ones we've contracted out to do the beds now.
The plantings that are in the beds presently,
Mm-hmm.
is that according to this?
Those were subbed out because we weren't under contract, so we reduced the plantings that we used for the fall and really just had them weed out the beds. And we haven't been maintaining them bi-weekly, which is what the contract is for, so that's why like the bed at CVS and Walgreens, that bed looks so bad, because they've just been mowing it down, they haven't been actually maintaining it like the contract would have them do.
Okay.
Anybody else?
Well, I had the same question along that. I noticed the bed at the corner of Langville Highway and where Blue Bonnet comes out there. It has, I believe, pansies in it, but there's so few, it's not noticeable. So
That's right.
is this what we should, I mean, is this enough plantings to fill up the beds to make them look nice?
So you have to remember that we were awarded the green ribbon project, so this spring we'll be planting through all of our green ribbon. So all of the beds minus the one at CVS and Walgreens will be completely redone. So we're going to bare minimally plant them until then because we don't want to waste plant
Okay,
material.
So is this contract for an entire year, or it's till we redo
It's to
the bed?
maintain these beds even as we're moving forward. They'll keep the sites clean, et cetera, and do all of the mowing around it, because that'll still need to be done even when we're editing the beds.
So the number of plants that will be in the beds will change once they're redone?
They will have to be up to what our landscape maintenance agreement is with TxDOT. So next year when we rebid, it'll be different.
Other questions?
Jen, have we looked at a possibility of doing an agreement with Tarleton State and the Horticulture Department?
Yes, we
To
do work
work
with
with
them
them.
currently now. We're working on a few projects where they'll plant some native beds. What they're trying to do is propagate some different carbon eaters. So they're doing it more from a project standpoint for their students than just planting our beds for us. And we're working on trying to provide some type of wholesale cost to us to purchase plants from them. But they wholesale purchase plants, and so we're working with their suppliers as well.
Will you be bringing back to us some type of the plan with regard to the median, I mean, not the medians, but the planters, you know, in the different places, as to what the new look is going to look like?
Yes, we recently received the 60% plans, and TxDOT's reviewing those right now. Once they approve them, we'll bring you guys back the 90% plans before we go to 100 for you to review.
Okay, do we review and approve those plans?
You don't have to, but we'd love your feedback for it.
So can we have those brought back in?
Certainly.
Other questions? Do I hear a motion?
Make the motion to approve the contract for landscape maintenance and state meetings. As presented.
Okay, Ricky makes the motion, do I hear a second?
Second.
Rick makes a second. Further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Same sign opposed, motion passes. All right, next item, thank you, ma'am. The next item is comments by city manager.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, it's after the new year, so we're headed for political season. The filing period for a place on the May 20 general election begins Wednesday, January 15th, and goes through Friday, February the 14th. We have a council work session next Monday, The 13th, from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m., that will be out at the city limits. Council committee meetings will be Tuesday, January 21st at 5:30. The regular council meeting will be Tuesday, February 4th at 5:30. That's all I've got.
Mondays from 10 to 2:30, is that what you said?
10 to 2
10 to 2.
ish.
Okay, Mark, council member.
So, we had several action items here tonight that really are just pieces of a puzzle. And we have not had the opportunity really to describe what that picture this puzzle makes in total. Hopefully, in the coming weeks and months, we'll be able to do that. And as that picture is being described, folks in town will be very excited and very happy. But to get us to the point where we were able to do what we did here tonight, it's come because a ton of people have worked tirelessly in doing the background work. And Mr. Barnes, Mr. King, other members of the city staff, Monica, Nick, Karen, have all worked long and hard on this. The commissioners on the Planning and Zoning Commission have worked hard on this. I don't usually give Jeff Sanford any credit, but Jeff and Ashley and the board of directors at CETA have worked on this. All of the members of this council and the mayor have worked on it. And to get us to this point, I don't have the right words to express my gratitude. So all I can do is just say thanks to everybody involved. Mr. Mayor.
Well, I wanted to talk about January 27th. That's the Oxford House Soup Supper at the museum. The tickets are $10 each. It's their annual fundraiser for funds toward the restoration of the Oxford House. It's from 4:30 to 6:30, I believe. I have tickets available if you'd like to buy some. And I also want to mention that after you partake of your soup, that you go to the forum for the Republican Party because it is political season. And the forum is on January 27th after the soup supper. It will start at 6:30, and it will be a forum for our local candidates. So you'll hear the sheriff candidates, the county commissioner candidates, and the constables at that forum. And it's at Bond Auditorium at 6:30 if you're interested in coming to the forum. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Ready?
No comment. Since it is our first regular meeting after the new year, Happy New Year to everybody. And to echo a little bit of what Mark said, I'm really looking forward to 2020 for the city of Stephenville. And I'm very grateful to have the opportunity to be a part of something that started really a long time before I got here. But I'm glad to help it move forward, and I think everybody will be very excited for 2020.
Alan? Gerald?
I'd just like to echo what these guys are saying. And 2020 is going to be an exciting year for all of us and all the citizens of Stephenville. And I'm just glad we're here in such a great town.
Brandon?
It's echoes, but it's Doug said it last time. I kind of said it. It's taken every council member up here to flesh out what I think is a really good plan for Stephenville. A lot of different ideas, but we've worked really hard together, and it's taken everybody up here, staff included, citizens involved. I got excited last year. I mean, it's going to be a great year, and it's only going to get better. And I appreciate all the hard work that everybody's put in, long hours, creative thoughts, thinking differently to get things done that's needed to be done for a long time for this city. So,
Thank you, sir. Only thing I have is that it's a political kind of issue as well. The governor of the state of Texas will be in Stephenville
On February 25th.
February 25th, and be sure that you get an idea of where that is and what it takes to get there. I'd encourage everybody to show up for that. And I want to say again, thanks to everybody on the council. You guys do a lot of hard work. It's nice to sit on a council where we can talk and have discussion and not have the consternation that some councils in the state of Texas have. With that, having that we have no other items on the agenda, we will stand adjourned at 6:31. Just 97.